March 1st of last year, he called me and said that he had just been diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. He had weeks to live. He ended up living 7 weeks to April 21st. His first 4.5 weeks were in a hospital that put him on morphine to start for the pain. And then that wasn't enough, so they added fentanyl. Fentanyl's 100 times more powerful than morphine, and all it did was put him to sleep. He said, "Dad, you need to get me off this fentanyl because I don't want to spend my last few weeks sleeping." I promised him I would. I talked to the oncologist at the hospital. We put in a prescription for removing the fentanyl and replacing it with cannabis, medical cannabis. It was denied. So I worked to find a hospital that would allow it. We did. The first day he was using the cannabis, he couldn't swallow anything, so it was administered through a spray under the tongue. And the first day he woke up after that first dosage, he was awake and alert, pain-free the entire day, talking to people on the phone, texting, having visitors. And it was that way for 2.5 weeks before he died. I did about 3 months of research around the country, and then drafted a bill, which I shared with Senator Waso, and he agreed to author it.
Currently in our country, patients are being administered drugs that have addictive or other harmful side effects. And these are currently approved by the federal government itself through the FDA. They're given drugs that are much more harmful to them than marijuana is. And that's what we've come to understand in this modern world. That marijuana is no longer a threat to these patients. It could really help them.
When I visited my dad when he was in hospice, it was very difficult to sit there with him and see him in as much pain as he was. It would have really improved his quality of life had he had access to medical cannabis.
This is now known to be a medically useful substance. It is now forbidden to be used in medical settings by federal statute. So we've got a blockage here. We've got to open this thing up so that this substance is available as it becomes proven that it is useful for more and more situations.
The cannabis would have to be prescribed, so they would actually have to have a prescription from a licensed physician to have access to it. But in addition to that, they would not be able to take the cannabis in a form that would be smokable, so there'd be no smoke. It would be simply a form that's ingestible, and it would not even be required to be provided by the hospital itself. So they would have to procure this on their own, and the hospital would just allow them to consume it while they're in the hospital.
The bill itself has an escape clause at the end. Should the feds show up and say, "Don't do this," they can stop it.
This presidential administration and previous presidential administrations under department policy have declared that it's a states' rights issue. In the event that that changes and there is enforcement, that would create an opt-out provision from these hospitals where they no longer have to respect this law because the law would then not be in compliance with federal law.
We're not talking about the general public walking into a hospital and having access to cannabis in the hospital. We're talking about people who are dying in the hospital.
And I hope that people see that this is a really good bill, good legislation, that it's compassionate and it's aimed at helping people that are on their final days that deserve to spend those final days with their family.